So in this video we're going to be talking a little bit about law and government, especially in the 4th century, especially in Athens. One of the effects of democracy in Athens is that the speaker becomes the essential component of democracy. This also means that it is just as important to be a listener. In other words, the effect of democracy is to create a sense of responsibility on the part of the citizen to participate, and participation is accomplished through the interaction of oratory. We must never forget that that oratory, that rhetoric, that the practice of public speaking is the central driving force of Greek society broadly, but especially Athens, and that this is interactive. That this is not just about people standing up at the speaker's platform on the pnyx and sending words out there. This is the Athenians have an active responsibility to hear and to engage in the processing of what is spoken, and this is never more so in Athenian society than in the two places in which citizens gather to speak and to listen, the assembly and in the conduct of criminal and civil justice. The nature of democracy, the nature of the polis in general, is to say that the people are sovereign. The people decide, and so the mechanisms of Athens in particular reflect that. The Athenian justice system is about putting the problems that occur in society, the crimes that people commit against each other, before the Athenian people, not to be decided by by some sort of judge, not to be decided by a king, not to be decided by an elected official like an archon, but to be decided by the people. And so this is why we have these massive Athenian juries of between 201 and 501 people. This is supposed to be a representative sampling of the Athenian citizen population chosen by lot. Of course, as we know, the fact that it is necessary to pay people in order to compensate them for taking the day or however long it takes to decide the trial means that the people who need to have these three obols are most well represented in the juries. And this means that we have lower ranks of society, we have elderly people, we have layabouts and other folks that are not necessarily a representative sampling, but the size of the juries and the way in which the Athenians attempt to make as many safeguards as possible to prevent the bribing of jurors, to prevent justice miscarrying through personal greed or other forms of corruption. One of the reasons that the things are put before the people rather than for an individual man is that it's easier to sway an individual man, whether it's a king or a a king or an archon or somebody else. The Athenian people are supposed to have the wherewithal to be just, and this is the thing, that the more that Athens embraces this idea, the more the Athenian citizen understands this as his role in a way that is not dissimilar from the way that a Spartan citizen sees his role as to fight and die for Sparta. This is the active engagement of society is something that we need to bear in mind. And so the process of of engaging in a criminal or civil trial involves the oratory of of advocates and the processing, the active engagement on the part of the audience. Both of these are vital and component parts. It isn't simply about the speaking. And this is one of the things that's striking about Athens in general. That the written word is one of the things that feels concrete to us, but for the Athenians, one of the most literate societies in history in the ancient world, the written word is secondary and comes after the interpersonal engagement of the spoken word. The fact that the spoken word is about both speaking and actively hearing is one of the things that that makes the written word inferior. This is why the Athenians themselves were thinking it's a terrible shame that we have all of the spoken words that we have left, a tiny proportion in terms of speeches, in terms of performed plays, and so forth and so on, that we have them only in written form, because the written form is not a dual process, is not an interactive process in the way that that speaking and listening is. And so this is profoundly true because in the court system, because what's most important about this is what the audience does, and this is just a particularly prominent example of what is true in general. In a way, what's most important about the performance of a play is what happens to the audience. The plays exist, speaking exists, speeches before the assembly exist. All of these exist not for the speakers, but for the audience to actively respond, to be provoked, and so this carries over, as I've suggested before, into visual media as well. The purpose of a visual media, visual arts, sculptures, frescoes, mosaics, so forth. Even the ceramic decoration is to engage and provoke. This is a component of the what the Athenians experience every day: interaction in the marketplace, participation in larger groups, and the formal actions of the assembly and the courts. The actual nature of criminal law, a lot of this is carried down directly from the days of Draco, which, as you remember, the importance of the draconian laws is to make the damage that people do to each other a matter of public concern. And so there's a large extent to which this doesn't change a great deal between the days of Draco in the 6th century and democratic Athens as it's established in the 5th century and reestablished in the 4th century. The nature of crime is the way in which it affects the community. Murder in particular, because not only is the community cost a life, but it is the kind of thing that provokes the gods, that creates a not just a not necessarily in the active sense of making Athena or Zeus angry, although there's still plenty of people that think in these terms, but also in the larger sense that Athens is corroded in a way that Athens itself is sacred, and these kinds of crimes are a corruption to Athens, in a sacred sense. That there's something about the community itself that is divine. There's something about the community itself that is special in a way that is beyond the individual mortal life, that possesses a force that is connected to the potency of the physical world. My point is that you don't have to think in terms of Zeus being angry in order to understand that that capital crimes represent a religious problem for the Athenians and for the people of other polis. And as a result, it becomes vitally important to ensure that people who commit major crimes are punished in order to resolve the damage and the sacred offense that's done as a result. And this includes capital punishment. There is a form of execution that is official execution that is not dissimilar to crucifixion, but there's also an extent to which the actual justice can still be undertaken privately before things ever get to the stage of public execution. This is of course true throughout history. The nature of Athenian collective responsibility is complicated by the ongoing problem of conflict between the few and the many. The problem of stasis, as I said earlier, is not resolved by the Peloponnesian War, either in Athens or anywhere else. And so as a result, there's an ongoing difficulty in bringing about the sense of the performance of collective responsibility, even though the Athenians are all acutely aware of it. And in a way, this can bring even greater frustration, that all Athenians know that they have a collective responsibility to engage in the decision-making of the community, and the fact that there are factions that are competing with each other and people that are trying to do things that seem wrong for Athens, only makes their attempt to make their own beliefs come into fruition that much fiercer. Stasis tends to feed upon itself, and this is why the internal conflict within a polis can lead so easily to the stalemate and the freezing of the ability of a community to accomplish anything. As the whole Greek world starts to break down in the 4th century, stasis becomes more acute because each polis is more and more, on its own, and more, in a sense of antagonism with other polis. Needs to rally to war that some people see as problematic or unnecessary, and others see as vital, as well as all the other things. And the economic repair doesn't get done because of all these things that get in the way. The antagonisms within the cities and antagonisms between the cities. And so, the urban economies of each of these cities, becomes more and more complicated. The Peloponnesian War immensely damages the economy overall at the level of the Aegean world, and within each community, there's less of an enterprising nature, less of an ability to engage in the risks of entrepreneurial commerce, and so things sort of tend to revert backwards into a less functional, less dynamic economy that is ultimately less able to recover. And the fact that the participation in commerce is still seen as beneath the status of a landowner. If you own land, you shouldn't be participating in commerce. This is a rule that's true throughout the ancient world and into the medieval. Means that that plus the massive amounts of reduction in both workers and leaders in the commercial enterprises, and the inability of commerce to to engage in risk-taking entrepreneurship is one of the factors that's, leaves the urban economy spinning its wheels in the 4th century and makes recovery, that much more difficult and problematic. And this is, again, one of the things that leaves the Greek world open to outside conquest later on in the 4th century, and we'll see how that goes next time. For now, that's that.